This French farm woman is home alone, getting ready to feed the chickens. Suddenly, a wounded stranger bursts into her yard. The farm woman does not understand the unfamiliar language coming from his mouth, but the sharp police whistle not far away instantly makes her realize that this trembling outsider is no ordinary passerby. Terrified, she hurriedly retreats back into the house and locks the door at once. She shuts both fear and danger outside, seeing the man raise his hands in despair, ready to surrender to the pursuing police. At the critical moment, the farm woman suddenly pushes open the back door and signals for him to come in quickly. In a single thought, life and death are decided, and she makes a choice that is both reckless and tender.
Nous recherchons un homme, madame. Un voyou. Avez-vous vu quelqu'un?
Non, j'ai vu personne.
Luckily, a kitten darts out of the room, dispelling the police's suspicion. It also allows the deserter hiding inside the house to escape danger for the moment. Set against the backdrop of World War I, this film uses an almost wordless emotional tension to tell the story of an Australian deserter and a French rural woman saving each other in the cracks of war. Nearly half of the film is in French dialogue. Their language barrier instead becomes the purest carrier of emotion, with restrained and understated visual language. The film tears open the individual trauma and faint human light hidden beneath World War I. Colombe is an ordinary farm woman in the French countryside, but her life has already been hollowed out by war. At the beginning of the war, her husband abandoned her and left alone. Returning to his hometown in Alsace, which had been occupied by Germany, he left her by herself, guarding an empty home, and her only son also died tragically on the brutal battlefield. He became another silent sacrifice of this war. Like all the women in the village, Colombe is forced to enter the roaring munitions factory. She uses dangerous assembly line work and meager wages to hold together her broken life. If not for the unexpected arrival of that Australian deserter, the rest of her life might have slowly drained away in silence and loneliness. This desperate man crashes into her gray life, and he also changes the path of fate that war had already written for her. Harry lives in a small rural town in Australia. He is gentle by nature and not good with words, spending his days with flour and ovens. He is a well-known baker in town, but this steady, ordinary life is crushed to pieces by the outbreak of war. In 1917, Australia is not yet a fully independent nation. It is only a self-governing dominion under the British Commonwealth. Its diplomacy and national defense are firmly controlled by Britain. When Britain declares war on Germany, the young men of this continent are pulled by invisible ties toward the Western Front across the ocean. In that society, going to the battlefield is an honor carved into the bones. Refusing to fight means being nailed to the pillar of shame as a coward. The glaring word coward on Harry's door is not just a word. It is the coldest judgment of an entire era against a man who refuses to become a killer. The town's public opinion is like an airtight net, tightly trapping 35-year-old Harry. For someone as naturally kind as him, killing with his own hands is even more terrifying than walking toward death. But under the torrent of the era, he has no way back. He can only leave his home behind, cross the ocean, and go to the hell of the Western Front in northern France. Originally, Harry is only responsible for logistics, doing his old work of baking bread. He stays away from the killing and remains safely in the rear. But as the spring offensive begins, casualties at the front surge, and manpower becomes desperately short. Some logistics personnel are forcibly transferred to fill infantry ranks. The order is cold and allows no refusal. On the battlefield, Harry sees soldiers pushed to mental collapse by the war, suffering from shell shock. Some comrades even admit they would rather end their own lives than be tortured and barely survive on the battlefield. At that moment, he finally wakes up completely. He has never been a soldier at all, only an ordinary civilian forced in to fill the numbers. The so-called glory of the battlefield is all a lie. This place is simply an open slaughterhouse. So during one transfer, he uses the excuse of relieving himself and chooses to run away. He is not afraid of death. He simply refuses to become a tool of war, forced to kill his own kind. Using the farmland as cover, he hunches his body and crawls forward. By sheer luck, he breaks away from the marching unit, but there is never an easy road in escape. Harry has no identity papers and cannot speak even half a sentence of French. His uniform and military boots are even more obvious flaws. This makes every step he takes extremely dangerous. During his escape, Harry truly realizes that the most terrifying thing about war is not bullets and shells. It is the absurdity of being hunted by his own side. Those scattered soldiers who flee, once caught and returned to camp, face only execution by firing squad. The reason is simply to enforce military discipline. Harry runs in panic with no sense of direction, stumbling into a small village. Although he temporarily shakes off his pursuers, His panic state is fully seen by a boy playing in a tree. Seeing the little boy follow him and then suddenly turn back, clearly intending to report him, Harry's heart tightens, and he does not dare stay for even a moment. He can only flee again in a panic. He wades across a murmuring stream and walks into the quiet hills and woods. Suddenly, he sees a farm woman bending down to cut grass. He quietly follows behind her all the way to a farmhouse at the edge of the woods. Only when he sees no one inside does he step out from the shadows. This is the scene at the beginning of the story. From the police who arrive afterward, Colombe finally learns where this man comes from. It turns out he is actually a deserter from Australia. Colombe does not understand English, and Harry cannot speak French. The two do not share a language and cannot communicate. Colombe can only gesture with her hands, signaling that the police have gone far away and he can come out safely. Seeing that he still does not dare walk out, Colombe simply closes the door and lets him stay inside alone. Only after she leaves does Harry carefully look around the room. It is only a plain and simple farmhouse, but the family photo on the table adds a little warmth to the cold, quiet room. Beside it is also a single photo of a young man. It is clear that this is the son of the woman who owns the house. He is also wearing a military uniform, and he too is a soldier. Only as the sky gradually darkens does Harry cautiously push open the door. He walks to the woman and softly introduces himself.
Jeune Harry. Excuse me.
Seeing that she does not respond, Harry can only quietly return inside. Not long after, the door is gently pushed open. Colombe walks in carrying steaming hot food. Harry has not eaten for several days. Starving, he quickly devours the food. Unexpectedly, Colombe does not drive him away. Instead, she takes the risk of leading him to an empty room upstairs. After Harry enters the room, for safety, she still locks the door from the outside. The next morning, when Harry wakes up, Colombe has already gone to work at the factory. On the table, she has specially left him some hard bread for breakfast. One must understand, sheltering a deserter is a serious crime. Colombe spends the entire day anxious and restless. She is terrified that someone will discover him. So when several policemen aggressively burst into the factory, her heart instantly starts pounding. Although the police are not there to arrest her, one of her co-workers is taken away for hiding a deserter. Even more shocking is that the person who reported her is the village priest, who has always been respected. When Colombe learns that the deserter hidden by her co-worker will be executed, her heart clenches hard. A piercing chill rises inside her. She thinks of her own son, the young man who had once also deserted. Back then, she cruelly drove her son out of the house and forced him back to the battlefield. At that time, she would rather have her son go to war and fight than fall into prison, but she never imagined that after that farewell, her son would never return. This became the regret of Colombe's entire life, and an unbreakable shackle around her heart. The reason she risked sheltering Harry is actually a form of atonement. Back then, she failed to protect her own child. Now, she wants to do everything she can to protect this young man who fears war just like her son did. She finds her son's clothes and tells him to change quickly. Otherwise, if he goes out in a military uniform, he will be arrested. Colombe brings over a stool and signals for Harry to stand on it. Although Harry cannot understand her intention, he still obediently does as she says. Colombe carefully opens the stitching at the trouser hems and pulls the fabric down firmly. This way, the pants will not be too short and will look more natural and well-fitted. In all his 35 years, apart from his mother, Harry has never been close to another woman, and no one has ever cared for him so thoughtfully like this. But when Colombe looks at Harry in these clothes, her heart is filled with unspeakable pain. The way he looks in this outfit is far too much like her dead son. She cannot bear to look any longer at the figure that stirs such painful memories. She almost hurriedly pushes Harry out of the house, but Harry has barely gone far when Colombe quickly chases after him again. Without explanation, she stuffs a cloth bundle into his arms to prevent Harry from exposing himself if questioned by the police. She tirelessly teaches him one sentence in Polish, again and again. She hopes this can at least let him pretend to be a Polish traveler passing through, so he will not be suspected for not speaking French. Hearing the neighbor arrive at the house, Colombe quickly pulls Harry into hiding. She whispers for him to go toward the woods and never pass through the village. Knowing he cannot understand, she anxiously keeps gesturing with her hands. Fortunately, Harry finally understands what she means. At this moment, Colombe has no idea that the danger has not truly passed. From the moment the neighbor and her son step into the house, cracks have already begun to form in the calm. The neighbor's son is the same little boy who saw Harry earlier. At Colombe's house, he sees the military uniform that has not yet been put away. Although the neighbor does not notice it for the time being, the banknote Harry casually pressed under the teapot, and the painting hanging on the wall, all become flaws that are hard to hide. After finally sending the neighbor and her son away without incident, Colombe thinks everything has returned to calm. But when night falls, Harry appears in the yard again, covered in injuries. It turns out that while passing through the woods, Harry ran into hunters. Although he awkwardly said that Polish sentence, they clearly took him for a thief. While fleeing in panic, he is unfortunately grazed behind the ear by shrapnel. Just like the first time, Colombe still does not shut him out. Instead, she carefully cleans his wound. Such a gentle touch gives Harry, who has never been close to a woman, a strange and subtle flutter in his heart. Colombe seems not to notice his reaction. That night, she once again locks him in the upstairs room. The next day, when she returns from work and sees smoke coming from the house, she thinks it is on fire. Unexpectedly, it is Harry baking bread. Colombe has built a small shelter for Harry in her simple, gentle way, and Harry repays this kindness in his own way. With the warmth of the oven, he melts the loneliness that has long filled this house. In the days that follow, Harry hides inside this house every day. After work, Colombe plays card games with him. She patiently teaches him to say numbers in French. They do not need many words. With only smiles, glances, and small gestures, they fill the gap between their languages, and they bring the long silent old house back to the warmth of human life. The upstairs room that had to be locked every night is no longer locked from the outside as the two grow closer. One night, Colombe opens that door herself. Two lonely souls slowly draw near. In the end, they break through the defenses in their hearts, and in that moment, Harry becomes a man in the truest sense, filled with joy. The next day he jumps straight into the pond to swim, but as soon as he comes ashore, he hears voices and rummaging inside the house. He thinks it is the police, so he does not dare approach rashly. He can only hide quietly to the side. Only after those people leave does he hurry back into the house, but the inside has already been turned upside down. It turns out to be a group of violent burglars. While tidying things up, Harry unexpectedly finds several letters from Alsace. Clearly, these were all letters Colombe's husband had sent home before. One must know that the address they were sent from is now under German control. That is why these letters had been carefully hidden away. Although Harry pretends not to have seen them, the police still come looking for Colombe the next day. A few days earlier, when the neighbor came over, Colombe had only said that this war was a disaster. She never expected that her neighbor would report her, and the root of all this trouble is that her husband is from Alsace, and during the war, he insisted on returning to territory controlled by the enemy. After experiencing her husband's cruel abandonment, Colombe does not feel especially hurt even now that she has been reported by her neighbor. She has ultimately seen through the nature of people, and she knows that some things can no longer be spoken carelessly. Fortunately, Harry's arrival adds a touch of color to her gray life. The daily life on this small farm becomes an oasis in the desert of war. Chickens cluck, geese honk. Here, Harry seems no longer to be a deserter, only an ordinary man helping with work. And Colombe is no longer an abandoned wife constantly watched by the authorities. She once again feels the warmth of being needed and respected. When Colombe works hard in the fields, Harry bends down and crawls along the ground beside her. Even if he cannot stand openly at her side, this silent companionship is enough to comfort Colombe's lonely heart. They share food together in the fields. They feed the geese at home together and tell the sex of every little chick. War wants to destroy everything, but they insist on protecting ordinary life. As time passes, silence gradually turns into deep affection. Their relationship also begins to change into love. It has nothing to do with age, language, or identity. It is simply two people abandoned by the world grabbing the last straw in desperation. But danger has never disappeared. The neighbor casually comes to the door again, saying she wants to buy a big white goose.
Y'a quelqu'un là-dedans?
Y'a quelqu'un? C'est les oies, elles sont énervées aujourd'hui, je sais pas pourquoi.
Colombe forces herself to stay calm and flatly denies it. Then she turns and slaps Harry across the face. He went outside recklessly, and if anyone saw him, he would face certain death. In chaotic times, everyone knows that reporting a deserter brings a reward. Even close relatives can betray each other, let alone neighbors who were never especially close to begin with. What war crushes is never only the body, it twists the human heart and human nature even more. Both Colombe and Harry know the police will come sooner or later. If he keeps staying, the danger will only grow. To avoid dragging her down, Harry finally makes up his mind to leave. That night, Harry walks out of the place that once gave him safe shelter and was filled with warmth and love, but because he has no identity papers and cannot speak French, before long, he is arrested by the police. Harry does not mention Colombe, not even half a word. He only vaguely says that he has been in the wilderness all this time. He suffers torture, but keeps his teeth clenched. He stubbornly refuses to give Colombe up. In the end, the little boy from the neighbor's house, encouraged by his mother, comes forward to inform on him. He publicly testifies that Harry once hid in Colombe's house. The trial becomes the deepest irony of the entire film. As long as Harry is willing to accuse Colombe of passing information to the German army, he can exchange it for a chance to live. But Harry would rather die than betray the person who saved him. Besides, Colombe never did such a thing. Harry refuses to accuse Colombe and is about to be sentenced to death. However, the Australian government's position brings a turning point. They oppose the death penalty. Harry is ultimately sentenced to life imprisonment, and Colombe, for sheltering a deserter, is sentenced to 5 years and imprisoned in Saint-Lazare prison. It is one of the darkest prisons in France. During his days behind bars, Harry studies French every day. The walls of his cell are covered densely with words. Finally, on November 11, 1918, Harry is told that the war has ended. His sentence is changed to a dishonorable discharge, and he regains his freedom. After leaving prison, the first thing Harry does is search for Colombe. He has learned French, and he carries drawings he made by hand, recording the little moments they shared together. Step by step, he walks to Colombe. He says to Colombe, "When I came to your house, I was afraid and ashamed, and you gave me everything. I know that running away was the rightest thing I have ever done in my life. I want to build a home with you." No one has ever spoken such tender words of love to her, not even the husband who lived with her for more than 10 years and then cruelly abandoned her. Colombe is full of resistance at first. She always feels that her youth has passed, and that she is not worthy of the younger Harry, but his persistent and sincere feelings melt her heart little by little, and make her suddenly understand how warm and healing it feels to be held in someone's heart and deeply loved. Harry returns to that farmhouse in the countryside. He returns to the daily life of chickens and geese, of grass wrapped in warm sunlight. He repairs the house alone and steadfastly guards the home. He takes on the responsibility that belongs to a man. For years pass. The person Harry has longed for day and night finally sets foot on the road home. At the end of the film, sunlight falls around the farmhouse. Harry and Colombe are finally reunited. The war is already over, but the wounds it leaves behind need a lifetime to heal. Yet with love and persistence, they prove that even if the world is broken, humanity can still remain whole. This is not a story about a deserter. It is a story about how a person holds on to themselves. The film closes in quiet music. There is nothing grand or explosive, only a slow and gentle healing, and this is the gentlest, yet firmest, resistance to cruel war.